Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1513B, and today's date is March 5th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Get Ready for the Deep State Dead Cat Bounce. It's not what you think. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, in the next couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, we're going to see a lot happen. And Q is referring to this as a dead cat bounce. And this is not a good thing. This is something that's going to happen where the deep state is going to try something, and this is going to be one of their last tries. And if you don't know what a dead cat bounce is, it's almost like when the stock market continually falls and then all of a sudden it shoots up and everyone thinks everything is fine, and then it crashes again. The same thing is going to happen here, but it has nothing to do with the stock market. It has to do with the deep state, where they are going to try to do something. It's going to shoot, it's going to shoot up like they have the narrative, and then it's going to fail. But they're going to give it their all, and Q is saying right now that this is going to happen very, very soon. And we talked about events on how they can't let this go and how they have to move forward and they have to regain the narrative. And we can see that something is definitely on the horizon. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to start off with contradictions in the Seth Rich murder. Continue to challenge the hacking narrative. Now, we know that Robert Mueller already indicted 13 Russians or so about how they hacked the elections. And we see right now there are rumors that are floating around saying that he's preparing a case against Russians who are alleged to have hacked the Democrats during the 2016 election. And again, this is coming out of the firm CrowdStrike. And what we're seeing right now is a desperate attempt to push the narrative and to gain the narrative of what really happened here. Now, Kim.com, as we know, he came out and he says he's a New Zealand entrepreneur. He says he has evidence about who really, took the information. It was copied off. It was Seth Rich. He obtained the information using a memory stick. They already proved that you can't copy the amount of data that quickly over the internet, and it had to be a memory stick. And we see right now that Mueller is trying to make a connection of the 13 Russian hackers who tried to sway the elections, which really didn't happen at all. This whole thing is made up. There's no evidence. It's complete propaganda. And he knows that he's never going to be able to bring the Russians over here to the United States to stand trial. That is not going to happen. And I don't think that's exactly what they want to do, because if they did do that, they would actually have to provide evidence, which they don't have, and they'd have to prove a case, which they can't. But I think the reason why they wanted to indict these individuals, it's because they wanted to link these hackers into the DNC and steer everyone away from Seth Rich. And I think this is what they're trying to do here. And this is why Mueller most likely is going to come out with this story to say, oh, they are the ones, according to CrowdStrike and other reports and things like that. That's why the DNC was hacked. It was done by these same exact 13 Russians. And we know that this isn't true. We know that the FBI never went in and looked at the servers, never looked at anything. And the whole thing is complete propaganda. And it's being done on purpose to gain the narrative. Now, we need to understand that they are running out of time. And they're trying to push whatever agenda they possibly can right now to keep the narrative. They don't want an investigation. They don't want anything like this whatsoever. Now, we need to pay close attention because Mueller is going to use the CrowdStrike report to support the rumored upcoming charges against the Russian hackers. And he's going to use this to try to build his case around this. But we need to understand that the CrowdStrike founder and anti-Putin Russian expat Dmitry Alberovich sits on the Atlantic Council, which is funded by the U.S. State Department, NATO, Latvia, Lithuania, Ukrainian oligarch Viktor Pinchuk. Who else is on the Atlantic Council? Evelyn Farkas, who slipped up during an MSNBC interview with Mika Brzezinski and disclosed that the Obama administration had been spying on the Trump campaign. She went on to say that the Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods, meaning we would no longer have access to that intelligence. And we see right now that all these individuals, all these groups, they're all interconnected. This was planned from the beginning because they're trying to cover their tracks. But it's all falling apart. The narrative is falling apart very, very quickly. Just like the narrative in North Korea, where they're developing a nuclear weapon, they're testing their missile systems to strike the United States. Because that whole story is completely falling apart because South Korea has appointed a 10-member delegation of diplomats led by the head of National Security Office and the nation's intelligence chief, who have been dispatched to North Korea for 2 days worth of talks to begin on Monday, which is today. The deployment is South Korea's attempt both to negotiate a possible visit by President Moon Jae-in to North Korea in the future, and most importantly, try to bolster talks between North Korea and the United States. Now, Trump has reported that North Korea had directly contacted him a couple of days ago prior with an offer of direct diplomacy. Now, if this is confirmed, that North Korea is reaching out, and again, Russia, China, they're behind all this. We have a freeze plan going on right now. What is the corporate media going to say? I mean, of course, they'll probably make something up, but if North Korea is reaching out, and this is actually a pretty darn good strategy, instead of Trump going in saying, we want peace, because then they can make a whole type of, some type of story where North Korea doesn't want to have peace and they can have a false flag. This way, North Korea is reaching out, asking for peace, wants to talk to the United States. And if this is all confirmed, well, the deep state, they have a much harder time pushing a false flag because it doesn't fit into the narrative. Now, can they still push one? Of course they can. But it will be shot down very, very quickly by South Korea, by Russia, by China, because they know what is going on right now. Because they're setting all of this up. And having North Korea contact the United States, well, the whole entire narrative then shifts. And we can see right now that they want to put this whole thing to rest. They want peace. This way, the deep state can't do anything else in this area. This is why they've been trying to link North Korea with Syria and so forth. Now, we talked about this dead cat bounce. Now, what this means is we had this event in Parkland, Florida. The event is dying down. It's pretty much out of the news cycle. Maybe every so often you hear about it, but it's dying down very, very quickly. Kids have returned to school. Testing is coming up, and this whole thing is pretty much done. And what is happening right now is that they need to report on other things which they don't want to report on. And of course, they have a lot of propaganda crap that they're throwing up there. So what they need to do to gain the narrative once again is they need to have another event. And we talked about Dallas. Q is hinting that it might happen in Houston. There might be a possible imminent attack in this area. Don't know exactly what it is. It could be a bomb. It could be a shooting. It could be anything. We don't know what it will be, but it could be something. And we see right now that Q is out there and he's dropping hints saying, why is Sessions acting weak with regards to the investigation? And I think this is all being done on purpose to throw the corporate media, to throw the deep state off, to make it look like Trump is struggling to get this investigation going. And I think behind the scenes, the investigation is ongoing. I think they're doing what they need to do, and they have a lot more information, and it's been going for quite a while. And they're trying to make it look like that is just getting off the ground to confuse what's going on. Now, the Inspector General, that report is supposed to be coming out about pretty much everything here. And if you notice, there were no leaks coming from the Inspector General report. And it looks like the mainstream media is trying to stage the narrative of what this is going to entail and who it's going to implicate, everything about FISA and things like that. And we see right now that the deep state is very, very worried. And this is why they are most likely going to have this dead cat bounce, where they're going to try to gain the narrative once again, but it's going to be short-lived and it's going to fall by the wayside. The other thing that Q said, that he wanted us to listen to a very specific video or audio, which I have partial audio of it, about Trump's speech. Maybe you've heard it before, maybe you haven't. But Q is saying, listen carefully. So here it is. Take a listen.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another 4-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation, and this will be our last chance to save it. I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
Now, as you can hear, he's pretty much discussing everything that we've been discussing, and we can see right now he's talking about almost all of the same things. And I don't think he's moving away from any of this. I just think it's taking much longer than he thought it was going to be. And I need to bring up something that Mark Twain said. In the beginning of change, the patriot is a scarce man, and brave, and hated, and scorned. When his cause succeeds, the timid join him, for then it costs nothing to be a patriot. And I do believe that's what's happening right now. People are, looking at him, hating him, calling him names, speaking out. They're afraid. People don't want to join up. They don't want to listen. And then when the movement starts and things start to change and people start to realize what's going on, they then say, you know something? maybe I should start to join. Maybe I see the movement. More people are joining. And I think this is what's going to happen eventually. Now, if you want to hear more of this, I have the uncensored version on Steemit, which is steemit.com/@X22 Report. And you can listen to the whole thing. Plus, I put on there the entire speech of Trump, so you can listen to that also. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.